And you're probably thinking it sounds a lot quieter now. It's not as loud as it was. Well, that's why the next plugin in my vocal chain is a compressor. I'm using the UED 1176 compressors. I love these compressors for vocals, right? This compressor is very easy to use. If you notice, there's no threshold. You just have the input, you have your output, you have attack, release, ratio, and this is just to select what you want this meter to show. The more inputs you drive into the compressor, the more compression you get. And for vocals, I also like to use a slow attack so that that initial transient can cut through. I mostly just use this compressor to just tame the peaks and pull back a little bit of the levels we've lost from the processing up to this point. And my ratio is also set to 4:1, basically. Before and after. I mean, I really like the tone of this compressor. It sounds very, very good. And then I'm using another UED compressor. I'm using the LA2A to even out the performance even some more. Right, so if you notice, I'm not doing so much gain reduction here, but there's some parts of the song where you actually do see a bit of gain reduction, right? But I'm not doing too much of that. I just have the peak reduction up to minus, what's that? It was like 30 dBs, and then make up gain to level match the whole compressing process. The next thing I'm doing in the vocal chain is multi-band compressor. Think about a multi-band compressor as an EQ with a compressor attached to it. So instead of a compressor where you're compressing the whole signal, with a multi-band compressor, what we're doing is we're compressing frequencies. So if you listen to your performance and you feel like around the mid-range, I would like to tame some of these low-mid frequencies, right? You set your threshold, right? You set your threshold just the way you set your threshold for compressors, right? You set your attack, how fast you want the compressor to kick in. You set your release, that's how fast you want the compressors to stop working. And then you must set a makeup gain, obviously you set your ratio. This is just a compressor mode. Compress means obviously compress. Expand means expand. Expand is more or less like an upward compression, but just think about expand basically as the opposite of compressing. But obviously we just want to compress. So the mode is set at compress, right? And then you have your knee, hard knee, soft knee. I failed to mention this earlier. Basically, you use the knee to set how fast you want the signal to go from being uncompressed to compressed. A hard knee means you're just going to be like bang into compressed. Do you understand? A soft knee means it's just going to like glide into the compression, basically. I'm using a soft knee for this because the soft knee setting is better for vocals. And then the last thing on my vocal chain is this Pro DS. So I'm using this at the end of the vocal chain to capture any sibilance that might have developed because of all the compressing and all the processing that I've done before now. Because sometimes that tends to happen actually a lot. I've set the range between 4 kilohertz and 9 kilohertz. Threshold is 40 dB, the range is 15 dB. On this particular section of the record, there's really not much sibilance, right? This actually sounds good. It sounds tame, but there are other parts that they're sibilance. So when it gets to those parts, this DSI is going to capture it. This is my lead bus, by the way, so which means I'm sending all of my lead vocals through this bus. On the track itself, I have a gain plugin, first of all. Remember, gain staging, right? And then I have this UED auto-tune. I love this auto-tune, by the way. It sounds very, very good. Actually, I'm very in love with UED plugins because when you use UED plugins combined with the UED interfaces, processing is done within the interface. So your computer is getting less load, all right? And the UED plugins are so amazing. They sound very good. They're probably some of the best plugin emulations of the actual analog gear in the market. Basically, slowly starting to switch all of my plugins to UED plugins. It just sounds amazing. So that's that for my vocal chain.